Is Joey Votto right? Should fans move on from the Astros cheating scandal?
No, Joey Votto is not right. And Joey Votto is someone I like and respect a great deal. But we're the customer. The fans are the customer, and the customer is always right. So if the customer decides that we want to give the Astros a hard time every time they come to our home ballpark, if we want to consider Carlos Correa and Jose Altuve and others cheaters, then we're allowed to do so. And you know why? Because Major League Baseball told us that they were. And because once it was discovered that they were, they handled it terribly. Terribly. So I'm still not over it myself, and it's of no place to Joey Votto to tell me how to feel about it.
Who handled it terribly, baseball or the Astros?
Both, but the Astros individually handled it terribly. Those guys have been they've been arrogant, they've been standoffish, they elected not to attend the All-Star game as not to get booed, amongst other things. And I think there's a real feeling around the game that they've gotten off scot-free because none of them had to face any punishment aside from the managers, of course, and that still rubs me the wrong way.
Okay. Now, I didn't put into the equation the most important part of what Joey Votto said. The reason he said that fans should move on is because, quote, the idea that the Astros were the only ones doing something wrong just baffles me, end quote. So, does it change your perspective when I tell you he's saying fans should move on because what the Astros were doing, essentially, everyone was doing, they're just the ones who got caught?
Well, that is true, and we know that because Major League Baseball sort of, dinged the Red Sox for doing the same thing, and obviously Alex Cora, as Red Sox manager, had to take a year off. That was, of course, for his time in Houston, but we know that this was a big problem for baseball, not just with the Astros. We do know that the Astros did so most egregiously, just like in the case of the steroid era. We know, or think we know, a few high-profile players that sort of have to bear that cross. And in this case, that's the Astros. If Major League Baseball did a full-on investigation and we found out that 15 or 20 teams were doing this stuff and the public knew that, it would be one thing. That did not happen. So am I willing to take Joey Votto's word for it? Sure. But the Astros did it. They won the World Series in large part because of it. And I'm not going to change my feelings over that for a long time. I'm just not going to get over it.
Well, the teams they beat in very tough series in that postseason were the Yankees and the Dodgers. We just heard from the Dodger fans last week booing loudly. Let me ask a Yankee fan, Nuno, what Joey Votto tells you, you need to move on from the Astros sign-stealing scandal. What do you say?
Two things. Yeah, no, that's not happening because the players that were affected by this haven't moved on. And second of all, the reason we can't move on is because the MLB did a bad job when they investigated this because they kind of did that, what is it, that you can't be half pregnant thing? It's like they knew other teams were doing this. They should have came down hard on these teams. They didn't. So now we as fans get to boo and yell and all that good stuff.
Okay, fair enough. So let me just ask you a question. When Garrett Cole takes the mound for the Yankees next, do you boo him?
No, I just want...
Was there a more important player on that team than Garrett Cole was? That team that you booed? And Garrett Cole, who, by the way, has been, I think, to at least tacitly demonstrated to be a cheater again this year because he was basically the central figure in the sticky stuff scandal. So we're very particular about which cheating we will and will not
tolerate. First of all, is it cheating if it's kind of allowed without being allowed?
Is it cheating if everyone is doing it? That's what Joey Votto is saying.
No. Well, guess what? But MLB put the Astros as the sacrificial lambs, and they cheated. They cheated my Yankees, so I'm going to yell.
They had no choice because one player went out and told, I think it was Sports Illustrated, this was going on, and baseball just couldn't pretend that it had not existed. Go ahead.
Here's why I'm not on Joey Votto's side, because after this came out and we learned of all the things that the Astros had done, around the league, roundly, they were publicly criticized and shamed by every notable player in baseball, including Mike Trout, including Clayton Kershaw, the guys that we admire and respect. So if at that time the sort of baseball intelligentsia said, this is unacceptable and worse than anything else that's going on, who am I to now 3 years later say, well, maybe if others were also kind of cheating, forget it. No. At the time, it was a huge deal, and I'm not willing to forget that. Time, to me, is not going to heal this wound.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.